what the difference are this time in recruiting jihadists?
Yeah, so clearly there are, this is a different, a more diverse group of people. Yes, it's true. Most of the guys who go to Syria, most of the Westerners are still male, they're still relatively young, they are still often second or third generation descendants of immigrant populations to Europe. But in this particular instance, we're seeing, for example, a lot more women. Women are going now, which would have been very unusual 10 or 15 years ago. We're seeing very young people, 15, 16-year-olds, which would have been very unusual 10 or 15 years ago. We're seeing a lot more converts, people who didn't grow up as Muslims but converted to Islam. It's a lot more diverse, and I think one of the reasons is that it's a lot of radicalization recruitment takes place over the internet. The internet, of course, makes it possible for unlikely candidates to become involved, like women, for example, who can get in touch with recruiters over the internet, something that they might have found difficult face-to-face, and of course also for very, very young people.
If you should put some percentages of the people who show up and go directly there, and those who recruit via internet.
So of course everyone uses the internet to some extent, but the majority of people who go to Syria are still going as part of clusters of people. So there are always a number of people who are going together, or a couple of people go first and then they bring over their friends one after the other. That's why you see concentrations of foreign fighters in unlikely places, like for example in Britain in Portsmouth or in Cardiff. But there's also a small percentage, maybe 15% of people, 15 to 20% of people who do not have prior relationships with fighters and who are almost exclusively radicalizing via the internet, and who are going on their own, who are turning up in Turkish border towns and are trying to facilitate a contact with a representative of a group and then go over into Syria.
Can you tell us the difference between the first wave of jihadists and the current wave?
So the first wave were people that went over in 2012 and early 2013. They were mostly motivated by the humanitarian crisis in Syria, by people suffering, people being killed by Bashar Assad's government, people being tortured and raped. And they really wanted to help. Of course, they had a strong sense of Islamic identity. They still felt very strongly about being Sunni Muslim, and that's why they felt they had to defend, if necessary with military means, their brothers and sisters. But there was a strong element of altruism, and that has changed with the rise of extremist groups, and especially, of course, what became ISIS. The people who are now going over really are mostly very ideological. They are motivated by the idea of the caliphate and wanting to build the caliphate and wanting to purify the Middle East, expel people like Shiites, Christians, Yazidis, even Kurds, even though Kurds technically are Sunnis. So they are very ideological, and they're quite different from the people who came in the first wave. And I think it's not a surprise that a lot of people who came in the first wave actually now feel quite frustrated. Some of them do feel that they are trapped in a situation that they don't want to be in, and quite a lot of them want to return to their European home countries. And on balance, I believe that these people that came in the first wave probably are less of a danger to society than the people who are going over to Syria now, people who are genuine extremists and who really subscribe to the notion of ISIS and Al-Qaeda.